another edition of the Calling It How I See It Sports Pod. Blake Terrence here with you. We got a full house, or more accurately, a four of a kind here tonight. Our largest group yet, as we've got Q, Kyle, and Eileen Marty here with us. I guess if Trent were ever able to join at the same time, and we had five, that would technically be the full house. Although the funny thing is, they're a four of a kind trumps a full house, so I guess that means we're destined for an awesome pod tonight. We've certainly got a lot to cover. We spent most of our prep talk talking about soccer, of all things. Might get Quentin to get Amanda, his lovely wife, to join us next week so they can talk for half the podcast about soccer. They're certainly the two soccer heads of the group. I know little to nothing. I learned today that Peter Vermees was fired, one of the longest tenured coaches, if not the longest in the MLS. I'm assuming that happened a couple days ago now, so that shows you where I'm at soccer-wise. But we got plenty to get to today. I think we're going to start with March Madness just because that's the hottest topic right now. And it sort of feels like a bummer of a topic to lead off with, though, folks, because, Kyle remembers fondly the last time all four one seeds made it, first time in 16, 17 years, to the 2008 team, the 2008 season, which featured the KU team, Bill Self's first national title over John Calipari at Memphis. That's the last time we had all four one seeds making it to the Final Four. I think some people might have called the chalkiness of the tournament in general, there wasn't a whole lot of surprise with the new NIL era that we had, quite chalkiness going on in the second weekend, but I don't think anybody expected all four one seeds to make it through, particularly Houston. You guys think this is some sort of symptom of the NIL era and the chalkiness that we've been seeing all tournament, or do you think the one seeds have actually just been predicted correctly as much as they can be?
I think it's a little early to call it a trend of NIL, just because it's only been a couple full seasons since that process kind of began. But I do think this group of four seeds is probably the strongest group we've seen, maybe back since 2008. I heard somewhere that any any of the four seeds plus Tennessee could have been a number one overall seed most years just based on Ken Palm ratings. So in a
Maybe
way, it's
Bama, for
not.
that matter, if you're doing that way.
Yeah, no, they're up there as well. But I think maybe not so surprising that these four were able to make it through the gauntlet that is the NCAA tournament.
Yes,
And
another.
we've got, two SEC teams up there. We've talked about SEC kind of
Yeah.
domination of the
Well, yeah, I
college
heard Kyle
basketball
about
world
to
this
jump
year.
in there, and he was making the point back before the tournament started. This was kind of vital for the SEC to justify these high seeds, and seems like they're following through on that.
Yeah, I guess the other way to frame this is, did you guys enjoy this kind of tournament, right? Like, technically, we're getting
Oh, yeah.
higher level basketball games, a lot better Sweet 16, Elite 8 matchups. Is that
Yeah,
more fun, or is it
absolutely.
more fun to see the Cinderella teams that win a game or two and end up getting blown out? I had to go into hiding last week. I picked St. John, like the single two seed, the one or two seed, not to advance into the Sweet
We
16 to
all
win it
did, man.
all.
We all
And
thought St. John's was the team instead of Houston. So,
I had Houston there, three of the four Final Four. I was like, I'm going to pick one team in there to change it up, something to differentiate from most of the country, and yeah, just blew that one off. But yeah, have you guys enjoyed kind of what's really been probably better basketball, like once you get to the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight, or do you prefer seeing a few more lower seeds advancing?
I like Cinderella stories when they actually do something. I don't feel like it's that cool when a 12 seed sneaks past a 5 and a 4 and then gets smacked by a 1 in the Sweet 16. I like it when it's like Butler making it to two straight national championship games, winning the second one. By the time they won the second one, they probably weren't that high, that low of a seed, high in number,
Butler
however you want
Butler
to.
lost both of those, I believe. I think they
I
went
thought
back
they
to back
won
and
a championship game. They lost the one to Duke on the Hayward prayer, and then I thought they won the next one. Maybe they lost both.
We need to get our fact checkers in here, but I
Yeah,
can't
whoever
quite
that
recall
is.
this. I definitely remember the Hayward miss there that rolled in and out off the bank shot, but
Yeah. Yeah, so that's my take on it. I mean, I root for upsets in the first weekend just because it adds thrill to it. I generally don't call double digit seeds to go past the second round. It inevitably happens every couple tournaments. I don't find, like I said, I don't find it all that exciting when nothing comes of it, but I like it when they make it far. So, as for the final weekend, I think we're getting about what we would want. You couldn't get much higher level basketball to your point. So, Q, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, narrative wise, it's always fun to have those mid majors that you've never heard of make it to the second or third weekend. But to your guys' point, it's a better product when you have the best talent playing the actual games. So I think we're in for very high level basketball this weekend, and uh, yeah, like I said, like it's not as exciting in the early weeks when all the chalky teams win, but once it gets to the end, you're seeing the best basketball out there.
Marty, you're probably a little biased on this one because your team is often the victim of those Cinderella stories we're talking about there. But what do you think? Do you want to see the lower seeds win just for the hell of it, or do you need them to actually go far to think it was worth it?
I mean, for the hell of it. Why not? Some people, this is their only chance. Why not? I mean, anything can happen. I personally, none of my brackets are perfect. I did not pick all of the one seeds in any of the final four options that I picked. It was just unrealistic. The fact that it hasn't happened since 2008, I have very fond memories of 2008. That was when I was cemented as a KU fan. I was a KU fan before that, but my mom called me in at halftime in the national championship game and said, "You're going to want to watch this." And, well, it went from there. And here we are. So it's really cool that it's happening again. And again, it's going to be great basketball because of the high level that we're at with all of the teams. But I don't know, a little variety is nice sometimes. I know we normally have the variety, but it's, if a one seed, not a one seed, doesn't go that far because of a lower seed, like, why not? Like, whatever, Purdue fell to a 16, however
Yep.
many years. So, thanks
That
for
was
having
fairly Dickinson. Yeah.
me.
Blake,
Yeah,
you
that
want
was
to talk
fairly.
about?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say you want to talk about Cinderellas versus higher quality basketball. I was doing some fact checking here, and so Butler ended up losing to the Kimball Walker Connecticut team that second year after the Duke loss. Final
Ah.
score of that game was 53-41. So if you want to talk
I
about a
remember
less
Oh,
that.
a
That
geez,
was
less quality
Louise.
so
product,
ugly.
and then I think they won another game in the low 50s or 40s to get to that final over Michigan State. It looks like too. So a lot of low
Defense wins
scoring games, and yeah.
championships, or at least comes close.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it has worked before. I mean, that Virginia. I know Virginia because Virginia made it to back and won one, lost one as well, right?
They
But
won.
Virginia definitely won a title a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won it. They won
They
it the
also
year after
lost.
they lost as the one seed. Yeah, so they
Right.
Oh,
lost in the first
that's what
round
it
as a
was,
one
right?
seed.
They
Yeah,
lost to UMBC. They became the first ever to
It
lose to a
happened back to
16.
back years after never happening before.
Was
So
it
that's
really?
kind of an interesting trend.
Did Purdue
You
lose
had,
the very next year after? I didn't even
I,
realize it
I
was that
believe
close
so.
together.
I believe so.
So
So
yeah,
that's kind of an
quite the
interesting bucking of
reversal
the
here.
trend. I mean, you had 16 seeds win back to back, and now, I mean, the best Cinderella story was Arkansas, the 10 seed.
Well, and I mean the stat head in me would say that's just a regression to the mean. But
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think it's relevant that you had. Well, and I believe, let's see here, St. John's. Correct me if I'm missing something here, but I think I've got it off the top of my head. I think St. John's was the only two not to make it to the Elite Eight. Weren't the other three regions 1-2 matchups?
yeah. Don't remind me.
One, two, or three.
Yeah, because
Wow.
Tennessee beat Kentucky,
Yep.
and that was the
Also,
only. Yep, there Marty's with the fact check that time. So three of the four you had 1-2s, and then you damn near had a 1-10. Frankly, Arkansas kind of blew that game. So well, and it's funny because somewhat this was predicted. Like I kind of sneak peek, gave you guys a little peek behind the curtain of how Trent and I have that survivor pool going, and we still have our bracket alive, but we're not standing to win all that much. We're basically just going to recoup our investment in the pool plus a few bucks because, over half of the pool still hasn't even used Florida or Duke going into the Final Four. So it's like I think everybody and their grandma is picking a Florida Duke championship game matchup. So I don't think anybody's necessarily surprised based on the betting markets that it's trending chalky. But I think most people expected Houston would get bounced a little bit early, had some faith in St. John's. Which of the it's hard to say like which of the teams is most vulnerable because it's like a one seed. But like if we assume that Florida is going to be, I'm sure they are. I haven't actually looked at the betting markets lines, but I'm assuming Florida and Duke are the favored teams. Maybe the question I should ask is which team, is it more surprising if Auburn or Houston wins it, right? Like I don't think nobody's going to be shocked if Duke wins, and I assume that's who we all pretty much would predict if I asked that question. Florida would be second. Who would be more shocking? I would assume we would say Houston because they would have to beat Duke first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
That have all of the number one picks except for Houston. I do not have Houston winning any of them. I just feel like they just aren't quite, they're just not there.
Well, they're not as dynamic. I mean, even watching them in their games so far, like they don't have the talent level that Duke or certainly Florida does. There definitely seems to be a trend of a tier of two in each of these Final Fours. Florida and Duke clearly more athletic. They have the star players like Clayton for Florida and Flagg for Duke are both probably lottery picks. Flagg will be the number one overall pick. I would assume Clayton will be a lottery pick. Whereas Houston and Auburn, I'm sure Auburn has a guy, but certainly the bit of a talent disparity there.
Well, he's actually Janai Broom, I think, is doing or favored for Player of the Year on Auburn. So I would actually probably pick them in that matchup. Auburn,
Over Florida?
Duke, and then I think, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then I think Duke probably takes it all. That's who I picked.
Yeah.
But definitely wouldn't sleep on Auburn. Bruce Pearl.
Now, what am I missing here? You say Player of the Year. I thought Flagg already won that.
Was that already announced?
I thought
Maybe
that
I
was
was
like
just
announced
thinking-
before the tournament. I thought.
Okay, but I might have been thinking SEC Player of the Year.
Maybe he was, yeah. Yeah.
Pretty sure Broom won that as a kind of 6'9" stretch forward
So kind of a
guy.
similar
Kind of
player.
does it all.
Kind of similar to Flagg in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting story, though. I think he came from a mid-major a couple of years ago and just got increasingly better every year and then really balled out this year.
And now Broom is sweeping through the tournament.
You know it?
All
Houston-
right. Go ahead, John.
Oh no, I was gonna say I do feel like Houston's kind of building something though. They, have really just came into the Big 12, dominated from day one. I was just looking up if they weren't in the Big 12 yet when they made the Final Four back in 2021, but seem to be living a little bit off that model of like keeping players around for 3 or 4 years. So it is interesting that Kelvin Sampson seems to be, not that he isn't utilizing the transfer portal, but like you said, one of those few coaches who seems to be building teams with a bunch of solid guys and not led by like one big superstar per se.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to be picking, Trent and I basically agreed we're going to pick Florida first over Auburn and then Duke, so hopefully recoup our investment there. So check that out if you ever want to get in on a low risk kind of pool like that. Certainly I've started up the Beat the Streak on the MLB app. Q, I don't know if you play that. You're probably the most likely out of the group here to play that after me. I got in a group with a guy, might give you a little sneak peek here as we transition, but been having conversations with a guy named Cameron Black. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of him. He did make it on national TV for a second a couple of years ago. So the backstory is I met him as a kid. He's blind as well. He's a few years older than me. He's probably in his mid-30s now, but he works for Alpha Point in Kansas City. And what's cool is he does their social media and there's some other stuff online for them. So, and he's a big sports fan, so this is kind of in his wheelhouse. And I got talking to him about, I joined his little Beat the Street group is actually how it started. And we got talking about this podcast, and he got to call a preseason game for the New York Knicks using some sort of technology that was, I guess, supposedly meant to help blind people watch a basketball game a little more in depth, and he called the game that way. So I think he's agreed to join the podcast in the near future. So I want to get him on to talk about that, of course, but then he'll have a lot of other sports takes. So yet another new face we might be adding to the pod. So stay tuned to the Calling It How I See It Sports Pod.